Jolanda, at Verheij, you're a part of the Obstakelverwijdertraject, the obstacle removal trajectory. You and your team are committed to removing obstacles that block the use and reuse of health data for research and innovation. Could you please elaborate a bit more on this trajectory and tell us more about obstacles that need removing? Of course, we've elaborated in different presentations, but I'd love to have from the expert herself.
Yeah, thank you. At Verheij, we're working towards national infrastructure for health data. And to accomplish that goal, there are many obstacles. And I think during the day, we've already heard many obstacles that also apply to the obstacle removal trajectory. When we started Verheij, we were dedicated to have an obstacle removal trajectory. And within that, we're working together with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education and Research, and also the Ministry of Economic Affairs to remove these obstacles. And they are kind of, well, not scattered, but they apply to the broad spectrum of the research infrastructure. So they apply more to the technical details, to the legal barricades, but also to obstacles that are more patient-related. So one of the obstacles is that health data and research data is not good findable. So at Verheij, we made a national health data catalog, which is based on metadata, so researchers can put the data of their research in the catalog for other researchers to find. But also other obstacles apply to the more legal barricades. So together in the Netherlands, we are working towards harmonization of the non-WMO guidelines, which apply to most of the secondary use of health data. Because we also see that within institutes, those guidelines are read differently or applied differently. So that's also one of the obstacles. We've identified also more patient-related obstacles, and they apply to consent. And how do you take patients with you in their options for consent? And of course, the EHDS will change a lot for them. So within Verheij, we're working also on how should we arrange the opt-out option, and how do we take citizens and patients also, what is their perspective on how this should be arranged, and how do we, where should people be able to opt out for the EHDS? But another obstacle...
All very practical questions also.
Yeah, but it's practical, it's legal, it's technical, it's everything that grasp the whole concept of use and reuse.
What's the thing that, from your point of view, that really came to mind when you heard the different presentations and the discussions? What obstacles did you?
I think I heard a lot of legal obstacles.
Yeah.
And I think the EHDS, of course, will provide in some. I remember in the presentation of Irit Kist, I'm not sure if she's still here, but I think in one of her last slides, she had a sentence that said linkage through BSN number.
Yeah.
So if you have different data sets coming from different sources with the same patients, how can you link them in the right way? And with Verheij, we'll also looking at ways to do that via BSN, and also talking to the Ministry of Health over that, but also with all the different parties and the different hospitals, the different stakeholders, to align the wishes and what is necessary to have safe linkage.
Yeah.
And also patients' organizations. Yes, so many legal difficulties, which might also be the hardest one to tackle, I guess. because technically it's like a lot of things is built. And another perspective from the obstacle removal trajectory, with what also came up this day, the patient's perspective and the patient view. And I think today or yesterday, within HealthRI, we made a toolkit to inform patients and citizens about secondary use of health data. And yesterday it was the kickoff. And it is a toolkit that can be used by care professionals and researchers, so that also within the Netherlands, patients are informed in the same way about the use and reuse of health data. And also with the upcoming EHDS, patients get that toolkit will be more extensive, and patients will be more informed, and also what their options are and how they can opt out in the future. So I think that was a
better information and informing this patient group. It's about the technical part, the legal part, the infrastructural part. Are those the big pillars? There might be 5 pillars.
17, I guess.
17. No.
I'm kind of also wondering what the rest of the panel thinks. What might be the hardest hurdle to overcome?
I think a nice way this is a beautiful segue into the other part that we're going into now, because we're going to try to pin this on a real-world case, a case that Gerard came up with that was in your research group, where you were sharing data internationally with colleagues in Denmark, I think. So I'd love for you to elaborate on that and see which different obstacles we can see, and then how they might be removed, or from your position, how they might be removed. Yeah. So please elaborate.
Well, thank you. So I'm a pediatric pulmonologist. That's a doctor that takes care of children with a lung disease. And I study asthma. And one of my goals is to be able to have an early diagnosis. So that's sort of the research goal. I think it's always important when you discuss data to first think about actually what you want to do with the data. So we are developing new diagnostic tests based on nose brushes. And everybody knows what nose brushes are since COVID. We take cells from these nose brushes, we take the DNA of those cells, we do DNA methylation arrays, and we have shown in previous work that it actually works really nice to generate the diagnostic panels for allergies and asthma in those children. But there was a problem. The problem was that we did it at age 16, and it turned out to be that our diagnostic algorithm, because we used machine learning, was quite sensitive to bias, and the bias was age here. So the next step in our research was that we wanted to involve other data sets from other places in the world with data from younger children, because our goal is to be able to diagnose asthma in the 2-year-olds, which is very difficult because we don't have a good diagnostic test for that. So the first problem we encountered is that there is some reusable published data on sort of the public resources, but it doesn't have the level of annotation and information. Actually, we need raw data to be able to annotate the bias in the data good enough that we can use it. So we reached out to colleagues in Denmark.
What would raw data be in this context of this research?
It would not be the DNA methylation intensity data. Let's say that's a data set with this amount of patients with 450,000 or 950,000 sites on the genome that gives you the intensity. But it would be the raw data that actually tells you exactly which slide had which intensity. So actually the data that comes up from the scanner. It's not the process data. Yeah. Because if you can use that data, you can model the technical biases way better. And we need that. Because if there's 2 experiments, one is in 6-year-olds and one is in 16-year-olds, there's a correlation between the technical bias and the age, and it's going to be very difficult to disentangle the two. So luckily our friend in Denmark had data from age 6-year-olds, which was very nice, and we felt, let's analyze those data together. And for this reason, you need to sort of combine the data. That means transferring epigenetic nasal DNA methylation data from Copenhagen to Groningen. And then you run into quite some issues. And the issues we ran into was, how did people from both universities look at DNA methylation data? Is it DNA data in the sense of genetic variation, or is it related to that? How personal is it? So there was quite some discussion about how to handle this type of data and how to look at it from a legal perspective. Then the second part, of course, is ownership and all these legal things that go into data transfer. But luckily, we have data transfer agreements on that. And then last but not least, there was also a technical issue how to get the data here in a safe way, because it was quite intense in terms of data size. These are just a few examples about all the hurdles. I mean, it took us 1.5 years.
And is this a hard disk containing the data, or lots of nasal swabs on glass?
It was transferred in a safe way. That's the good thing. It was not the nasal swabs, including the whatever is on a nasal swab. It is just data.
Data, okay.
And data
Digital.
is what we need.
Okay,
right?
okay. Yeah. So lots of different things, how to handle the things, ownership, transporting. How long did it take to get to the actual collaboration? How much work did it take?
It took us 1.5 to 2 years to get the raw data transferred to our servers.
And if you would do this again, he's going to do this again, I hope. What are the biggest mistakes you want to avoid, and the biggest learnings that you would, your future self, that you want to have your future self enjoy? Like, how can you make it more efficient, for example?
That's a very good point. I always feel that the problems are outside of myself. Maybe people have the same. The big point is that there apparently were differences in how legal experts from different universities would look at the sensitivities of epigenetic data. So that's something that I cannot control, is how people look at epigenetics. And apparently the legal framework to look at that is different between, that's what I learned, between Denmark and the Netherlands. So able to agree on how you would share data, you would have a sort of shared vision on what type of data we're talking about. And I heard this morning a very nice sort of talk about that personal data is not so, you shouldn't be afraid of exchanging that anymore. But I would hope that a European framework would actually help us giving all different people from different countries the same wording and the same vocabulary, that we are talking about the same thing. That would be a very good start.
René?
Well, a question comes to mind. Do you need the data in Groningen, or do you need just access to the data? Because if you don't have to transfer the data from one place to another, you can analyze it in the place where it's stored.
Yeah, that would be preferable, but we wanted to apply methods that actually require us to have all raw data at the same place. So the most easy thing that we do a lot, and we try to do it a lot, is that we just generate algorithms and that people run the algorithm locally, and you just you share the results of that. That's way more easy. That's if in terms of what would be make easy. That's the solution. But for this, we really need to combine the raw data, because we need to model the technical variation in a way that we can disentangle technical variation from biological variation. So this method needed that.
So one advice that you gained from this is have a Europe-wide framework where you are het eens zijn? Oh my.
Agree.
Where you agree upon a certain set of concepts.
Yep.
Judicial concepts and other ones, but a lot of the time got into like things that were lost in translation, or that concepts that needed to be identified. And
so, I mean, the rule is that people use the material transfer agreement or the data transfer agreement from the donating hospital, and apparently the one from Copenhagen had different wordings that were not similar to the things we use in the Netherlands. So, I mean, that took quite some time to figure out how to do that.
That was one.
Yeah.
Other advice based on what you've learned to make it more efficient, or?
Well, I think your question is really good. If we can come up with ways to do, because I do machine learning a lot, so I'm really aware of the biases in the data, so I think we need to combine it. If we can come up with federated methods that can keep the data within a certain protective space, like health data, and that would make life way more easy, because then you can just distribute the algorithms, you can distribute the methods, along different sites, people can do their work. I think it's called swarm learning, and people have actually been trying with that. That also would be a sort of innovation in methodology that would make life way easier for researchers.
Is this a technological thing? Federated, this is all new to me. So
Yeah,
federated
that's technological. There are several reasons to do that. The one is it makes life easy because then the data is within the protected environment of a hospital.
Okay.
That's one. And secondly, it also costs, if you do it, if you let big algorithms run at a lot of data, it also costs a lot of energy. So it's also more energy efficient.
Okay.
If you do it locally.
Smarter ways of organizing these things. Do you have any advice to?
Yeah, well, so within the EHDS, data should be processed in a secure processing environment. I think in a federated way as well, but I'm not sure if that's still like on the technical details. So that might definitely be for the future a good idea. But I also, what you're saying is that you needed the data here to have specific algorithms, specific things. So I think even in a secure processing environment, that's what you're saying is might be really difficult to achieve. How do we, we can build a secure processing environment, but are we then able to do everything what we want with the data? Or do we need extra things? Or are we still leaning on actually transferring the data? And I think within the coming years that we will see how that all works out. But I think in the beginning, a secure processing environment might be quite limited, but over the years will be, getting more available for researchers.
As a researcher, I would
tools.
love that there would be some European data space where researchers that want together can get sort of a shared server where they would work collectively on research. That would be a sort of a dream. But I think it's nice to talk about potential solutions. And another thing is people are sharing data. That's really nice. So you can go to repositories, you can download data, but the metadata that goes with it is very often not good enough to the aims that we have. So,
And what I also take from what you just said is that it takes in-depth knowledge about how this research was done, identifying how both parties do that, and then coordinating how you want to move forward when you collaborate.
absolutely. I do machine learning. AI is exactly very good at detecting biases. So that means that you really need to be aware of how the data was generated, what sort of groups were involved, because I see people applying algorithms on data they don't actually know, and I see very strange results coming from that.
Yeah. Robert, any from your viewpoint?
Yes, well, thank you. Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot to be gained by educating researchers in the fact that the data that they use has a history. Where does it come from? You have to really know where it comes from, and for that you need domain knowledge, as I call it, and that domain knowledge is not evenly spread among researchers nowadays. It needs to be developed further in the education of researchers in universities, and also the organizations that have this domain knowledge about GPs or hospitals or specific procedures or healthcare systems in general. You have to stimulate the organizations that have this knowledge to share it, and you have to reward them as well. So institutes like Nivel, where I work myself, there's a lot of knowledge about primary care data. How is it generated and what kind of systems there are? You need that knowledge to be able to make chocolate out of the data that is provided. And these organizations need to have the opportunity to use that, to bring on that knowledge. Another thing I wanted to mention is this is all about humans. And another thing about humans, and I think it's a big progress that we now have no longer an opt-in system, but we are moving towards an opt-out system. But I heard rumors that there are organizations organizing themselves saying, we don't want this, and we will jointly do an opt-out. And that is again a risk. That's a huge risk of bias.
Of citizens?
Groups of citizens. For example,
Opting
individuals with specific diseases that they feel uncomfortable with the risk that somebody else might know it. They might organize themselves and opt out as a group. There might be political parties that mobilize individuals to do that. And that is a huge risk, I think, that is associated with the opt-out system that we have to deal with. And a third, I don't want to take too much time, but a third topic that I wanted to mention here is the huge topic of governance, data governance. Who is allowed to do what with what data for what purpose? That is a subject that is a human interaction thing. And what we have to do there is work on trust by thinking the way, for example, this Maurice de Hond guy does, or other people that might object to using the data. You have to be aware of their way of thinking and anticipate on that and try to find ways of involving individuals and groups that are not necessarily within your own bubble.
Looking for dialogue with people.
Yeah, you have to organize the dialogue. There are big steps going on with EHDS and HDABs and etc. etc. But it is still a huge challenge, I think.
Yeah, I think it's...
Oh, yes, and sorry, and then I'll stop. One thing I also wanted to mention is that you were saying this is a practical approach, and it is, and I think that is necessary as well.
Where can you opt out? It sounds very
practical. Yes, that's a very practical thing. But we also need to invest in knowledge about that, and that is about research into these processes. And that is something that we are trying to do in my research group in Nivel and at Tilburg University, trying to find out what motivates individuals and groups to do one thing or another. And that's a sort of topic that is really, really necessary to have more knowledge about, and I would really like to work together more than we do now with Health RI in that respect.
Yeah, I wanted to add that transparency, I guess, to patients and citizens is key. Also with the EHDS coming, and what happens to the data when the data is used for what purpose. I think that's very important to give back to citizens. But you have to do that in a nuanced way, because it can also turn the other way around. But involving them and informing them, I think, is key.
Do you have an example from your work where you involved actual citizens in this process?
Yeah, within Health RI we have a maatschappelijke adviesraad, so a societal...
Advice council?
Yeah, and it's different parties, different citizens, different patients, and they present their view on, for instance, the opt-out, what's coming, how they think it should be arranged, or what should be given back to the patients about the data. So we're definitely involving them, yeah.
Back to the case of the curious international sharing case of Gerard. Of course, you are also experts in your field. Any one of you have advice for Gerard on how to improve the speed at which he does this next time, or make it easier? Please. Gerard's like,
wait for the EHDS.
2 sets of advice. I'm gonna bring the. Yeah, you're gonna bring the. Oh, I should have arranged this way earlier, Jürgen. Yeah.
It's been taking a while, but for example, at Amsterdam UMC, you were expecting somebody else to speak?
No. I was looking at the technical person behind Thijs.
Oh, okay.
To put on your microphone.
Otherwise, you can just put on a louder voice. That's no problem. But at Amsterdam UMC, we've been trying to do that too. We had some problems, for example, with standard guidelines for transcriptomics, and we couldn't get the privacy
guidelines for, oh, please.
Yeah, for transcriptomics.
Transcriptomics.
Yes.
Wow.
So a lot of people have data that they want to share,
Yeah.
they want to put it in an online repository, they think it's possible for their type of data, for example, have some information on the cell level that will not be able to be traced back to a person in that way, but still contains like DNA, RNA.
Yeah.
So we wanted to set up some guidelines under these circumstances. These transcriptomics can be put in a repository, be shared publicly. We've been working on it for 2 years to get something with multiple researchers that the Privacy Office can agree with.
Yeah, this is a year thing.
But
years.
if on a national level there would be some collaboration that includes privacy officers to set up these standard guidelines, there wouldn't be separate hurdles per institution to overcome.
All the people on the same bus traveling the same road and trying to remove the obstacles.
Exactly, but in a speedy way, because I think everybody knows what kind of repository, or in that field knows what kind of repositories are out there.
Yeah.
We have some guidance on, okay, what kind of metadata and data can you deposit there? Are they in a European service? What kind of certification is present and is not? If there's a certification problem for a repository, which is sometimes a privacy obstacle, let's arrange that on a national level and not an institutional level to put pressure on those repositories to get that certification so that that hurdle is also overcome or
So
also tackled.
The concrete advice is tackle these things at a more national level and pool the expertise of, for example, these
If three privacy
officers.
officers from academic hospitals can agree on something, why would the others disagree if there's enough documentation on it?
Group pressure. Privacy officer group. Gerard.
Yeah, I can really relate to that. So I was involved in the Human Cell Atlas, which is a repository of single cell data from the lung, where we also needed to share. And actually, we got a large European grant. My colleague Martijn Naven did. And then we agreed to share this single cell transcriptome of all the cells to be able to make one huge, giant single cell lung cell atlas. And at the time that we generated data, the sort of privacy officer said, well, this is identifiable. You cannot do that anymore. And then we said, well, we need to go to the European Union and give them back all the millions of euros we got, because when we got the grant, actually we signed that we would do that. So that was sort of our way around that. So you said we would do it, so we need to do it. But then again, this is not national, this is international. So again, I would sort of take this to the next level and go for international sort of guidelines or collaborations, that we don't have to reinvent the wheel at a local level every time that we want to share data.
Are there examples of these? Of course, maybe the EHDS is an example of doing that on a European scale?
Maybe you can help me.
Yeah, but not at that level. But I'm again going to talk about HealthRI. We have different domains. So we have a lot of contact with the UMCs, but we also are trying to establish a domain node. So we already have an oncology domain node and also a cardiovascular domain node. So the issues that typically arise in a specific domain will then be addressed, and it's still in a starting phase. But also the funders are then the KWF is also within the oncology domain. So it's like a shared effort to tackle these specific domain things. But yeah, in the future, hopefully more domains will come.
There's more advice.
But also, sorry.
Oh, René.
Yeah, sorry.
And
But also, I'm from the biobank collections team within HealthRI. So there is a lot of policies, etc., that have been drawn up for making it easier to do these things. So national protocols, etc., that is being set up. So if transcriptomics doesn't have that, then I think HealthRI should be able to take that up and put that into agreed upon ways of working. And privacy officers, well, I don't think they have any problems with doing those things. Because I think for the, what's it called? Han, hoe heet dat ook weer? De niet-WMO-toetsing. Until now, that was every hospital was going through their own way of approving them.
Yeah.
But now they agreed upon that if one has approved, then they all approve the same thing. So that's a thing that HealthRI has accomplished. So that's, well, that could also be done for other things.
Yeah, I could also give advice to try to get privacy officers with expertise in science-related issues, because that's not a given in many privacy officers. because, for example, in this case, the conversation this morning could really affect, because it is now acknowledged that that is personal only in certain circumstances.
Could
and
you,
context.
yeah, a bit louder. Yeah, that's it.
And then in your case, for example, if you have one way, for example, you can prove it that the actual data that you're going to have it in the actual context is not going to be identifiable anymore. And if you can show that, then it's anonymous in that context. That will be clear. So, and the second one, even if it's identifiable, and by identifiable means that you can trace it back to the person, you can also rely on consent. If they want to, you can ask them directly, can I make this specific information publicly available? Easiest thing. But you can also rely on public interest and do it an opt-out. Just announce them, hey, this is how it's going to be. This is the way it could get traced back to you. And if it's something that you are not comfortable with it, just react to us. Otherwise, just leave it like that. So there are many ways now available to solve issues like that, but it's key to have appropriate expertise around it that can give you this advice.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, it's a bit technical, but if you have DNA methylation, it relates to genetic variation. So you can actually translate back the genetic code based on your DNA methylation signatures, which means it is identifiable.
By whom, for example?
By an expert.
Exactly. So if the expert have this thing, they will also need to have access to the original material to be able to link it back. And that's the thing. If that is not available, then in this context it's anonymous, but it's not going to be anonymous to the person who has access to the original material. And that's what the key is in this case, that anonymous is a relative term in this way.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And the second one is about consent.
Yeah.
So a lot of the studies have informed consent for example, doing genetic studies, maybe even sharing data, but they do not really have explicit informed consent of sending it to another country, working with private partners. I mean, the new informed consents are more and more specific. But if you work with, let's say, population-based data that was generated 8 or 9 years ago, which happens a lot in my field, then the informed consent is not as specific as people actually may want it to be. So sometimes they actually stop exchange of data because of the fact that the informed consent 10 years ago did not address a situation that is now relevant now. And that is also a big problem.
Yeah, that's true.
This is,
the last.
we're going to reserve this for over drinks.
Yes, good question.
So, I would like to wrap up. And I would like to wrap up with one of my favorite questions to ask when you have these very complex, hairy subjects. That's my benign autocrat question. So I would magically make each one of you a benign autocrat. You can rule by executive order, Europe-wide or a country of your choosing. Name one thing that you would do with that power to bring about a fair data future or to remove obstacles. I'm handing you this magical pen, Robert. Here it is. And you can sign this executive order. What would you do with that power? Wield it wisely.
I'm not sure. Please, the pencil is yours. No, I don't believe in these types of decrees and things like that. I think the whole issue is about trust, as I tried to point out several times. And I think such an autocratic figure making decrees does not contribute to that. So the only thing I would really want to happen is that people, organizations and individuals listen to each other and try to understand what motivates them to do things that they do and try to move together in the same direction. And there is no golden, what is it, golden bullet? Golden, well... something.
You could sign something where you could enable people to discuss more and.
No.
That's
not.
This is not a question.
Not the type of person that I am.
Gerard.
Okay. Well, I can do it. No, just for joke. So what I see here in the room, and I met a lot of people, and actually I'm interested in open data and open science, but I don't see there's many clinician scientists here in the room, right? So, and I meet a lot of my colleagues that are really positive. They really say, well, you're right. I mean, we generated this data with public money, with money from patient organizations. I think it's good that it's to the benefit of us all. So there's a general positive feeling that we should do this. But I also see, I mean, already here there are experts in the field, way more expert than I am on what are the challenges, difficulties. So if I would have a degree, I would generate one giant help desk that would be able to help, people that are of goodwill. They really want to share data to sort of make them do it.
The one help desk to rule them all.
I find that very scary. A very big help desk with someone behind it.
Yeah, not someone, hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people. That's even worse.
Okay, René.
I would
Yeah.
have one. So
The magic.
well, I think the magic word is collaboration should be there between the real experts like Gerard and the people who have the expertise on the fair data things. Because last week we had a preparation meeting and I heard some things that I thought, okay, yeah, this is a problem I wasn't aware of. And well, he's a real good specialist in his field. We are all specialists in our field. But if we collaborate, then we can achieve things. So not if we do it separately. Or if it's the secure processing environment.
It works. He joins the help desk.
No, but I'm not a help desk because I want to work together.
Yeah.
I don't want to be. I can also come to you with questions. Of course. That's what we need. I think that's what my degree.
Okay. Yeah, pass on the magical.
Yeah,
Pencil.
so again, for the help desk, we have one at HealthRI. And also we recently lonched a Fair Meso line. So that's actually a guideline to guide you through all the verification steps. So that might be worthwhile to look at. I would say it also starts with awareness, with the start of studies, with the start of already having students, bachelor, masters, the what data can do, what the value is, but also how we should start with the data sets and not at the level when you start with a PhD, but already earlier and earlier, so that it's people are aware, and that the question that I think was stated in the beginning, like where can I drop my metadata about my project, that those questions are not tackled here, but are just a given, and everybody is aware already from the beginning. And I think if we can reach that, I think then we're getting further.
Thank you so much. Can I have a warm round of applause voor Jolanda Derks, Gerard Koppelman, René Oostergo en Robert Verheij.